Hey guys, in this video I'm going to go over the Graffiti X by Lyric Cycles. I purchased this bike in May of 2024. It's a pretty long wait. I eventually received it right around Halloween of 2024, and unfortunately it did not function properly after assembling it, as you'll see in a little bit. I'll go over the specs of the bike real quick. It is a 3000 watt direct drive hub motor that is capable of peaking at 7200 watts. It's a 60 volt 40 amp hour battery. It has a full suspension system with a 90 millimeter rear dual shock, and the front is 160 millimeters. It's got a belt drive instead of a chain, single speed, so it's got no maintenance or low maintenance, and it's a lot quieter. And it also comes with really good Magura MT eBike brakes, which are 4-piston, 203 millimeter calipers, and the seat is pretty comfortable in my opinion. It also has motorcycle rims and CST motorcycle tires. It has turn signals, brake lights, and a 6000 lumen headlight that has a low and high beam. What's also cool about this e-bike, it has regenerative braking, so if you squeeze either of the brake levers, it starts regenerating power back to the battery, which is a feature of direct drive motors. And another cool feature about this e-bike is it has a nice plush long seat with second passenger pegs, so if you ever need to carry an extra rider, that's not a problem. So when I first got the bike, I assembled everything, as you can see right here. And when I went to power on the bike, I did experience a short circuit and an error, unfortunately. So I put the key into the bike and then I powered on the bike, and as soon as I pressed the mode button, I got this short circuit error. So I think there was something wrong with the wiring harness. So I ended up contacting Lyric, and they said they had to send me out a new display, a wiring harness, and a controller just so I can get up and running again. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything in stock at the moment.
Many months later.
Right before New Year's, I received the new controller. It did not have holes, so I did have to machine new holes into it to match up with the old ones to mount it. Mounted it, put in the new harness, put in the new display, powered it on, and everything looked good. But then when I went to ride the bike, it was limited at 20 miles per hour. That required a technical remote session with Lyric Cycles, where they were able to remote in and load up BAC door and correct the limiter issue, which was set to I think around 35 kilometers. So we were able to successfully reprogram the limit, and I was able to get the bike over 20. Now that the bike was functioning okay, there was a few mods that I had in mind that I wanted to do to the bike. One of the things I did have to do to the bike is I did have to true the wheels. It was a little wobbly, so if you do have that issue, you might want to go to a motorcycle shop that knows how to true motorcycle wheels, and on top of it you might want to balance them. I didn't end up doing that, and it's fine, but truing the wheels really helped a lot. So here I am putting on a Magura floating rotor, which is the upgraded version of what they had on. I also did one on the front. In the front, I also decided to go up in size to a 220 millimeter rotor, which required the Magura adapter that brings you from 203 to 220. And that gives the front a little more biting power and leverage when stopping, which is great in my opinion. So here I'm installing the adapter, making sure that they're all threaded properly, and then I'll tighten them down fully once the wheel is on there and everything's lined up okay. I decided to put some super lube grease on the front axle to keep it lubed up nice and well. Used a soft dead blow hammer to get everything in place, tightened all the pinch bolts down and everything, and lined everything up, spun it up, tightened down the front piston, caliper, and everything was good to go. And I opted to get a Suron type of handlebar, which wasn't as wide on the bottom, which gave me more access to the air adjustment on the front left fork. Another thing with this bike is it did come with a messed up right fork. The front right fork was making a clicking noise, so Lyric did eventually send me one whole new fork out, but it was actually easy to replace because I was able to take the triple tree and loosen it and only replace that section of the fork. So I do have a spare air side if I need to replace it if anything happens to that air side, which is good. Here I'm just putting back the controls and the brakes and making sure everything's all neat and tidy to get everything all nice. So another modification I did was I shortened up the kickstand because a lot of people complained on the Facebook groups that it was too long and their bike was possibly tipping over too easily. So all you have to do is take off the plastic from the bottom of the kickstand, cut off an inch off the bottom with a hacksaw, and then drill a hole about a ½ inch higher than the slot limit, and then put everything back together, and then your kickstand will stand a lot better with the bike. And here I'm drilling out the end of the bars using a step drill bit to insert the last final touches, which are 2 bar end mirrors on the left and the right side. So that will allow me to see all the traffic and everything behind me. So after that, the bike's ready to go. Alright, hey guys, now I'm out here riding, testing it out. The battery is around 66 volts when I started. Did some riding, went from fully charged yesterday. Alright, so about this bike. Alright, where do I start? Let's start with how everyone was complaining about the power mapping. The power mapping watts in kilowatt feature, it's called power mapping, and basically what that does is per each speed it'll limit your power. Now that's good for a really powerful e-bike such as like a Sur type of e-bike where they're using mid-drive motors with a chain and they have a lot of torque. So if you were to put it at 100% at 0, you know, it would just spin out the tire uncontrollably. So they tune it down so the throttle ramping makes more sense, you know. With this type of e-bike, you want power mapping basically at 100% all the way through, because direct drive motors basically have no torque to start with. So that was the one tune error they made. They might have done that just for getting better range or maybe possibly heat buildup. On to the next issue. They never set up the thermistor in this bike, and if you look in the controller, the setting was never enabled. So basically, it wouldn't register anything except for 24 Celsius as you see in this screenshot. And since it didn't register anything, the bike doesn't know, or the controller doesn't know what temperature the motor's at, so it doesn't know how to control that. So it's possible that's what happened in McCentral Driver's prototype video where he's riding the bike in, I think, over 100-degree Fahrenheit weather, and the motor, I think something just ends up stopping on the bike. So it's possible that it overheated. Now, what I did was I entered these values in. There's a chart that gives you enter the resistance of the type of thermistor you have, and that thermistor type changes voltage depending on the temperature. So it's fed a voltage, and as the temperature changes, the voltage actually goes up on the actually voltage resistance, I think, goes down, or whatever, whichever it is. So the voltage will drop because the hotter it gets, it's not conducting as well. What I did was I enabled that feature, and then after enabling that feature, it was able to read the temperature. So if you look here, I'm riding the bike, it started at 10 Celsius. Now it's up to 57. I did put a heat sink on the back of the bike, and basically what that does is it helps cool off the motor from the inside, you know, it goes out and the fins help it cool off. Now, before I had the heatsink on, it was getting really, really hot. You can also add this thing called Statorade, which is like a ferrofluid, magnetic fluid or something, that helps draw the heat out even more, but I didn't do that yet. So basically what I did was I put a fold back feature where inside the controller it will start limiting power at, like, say 120 Celsius. I think these motors are good up to 150 Celsius, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically what happens is magnets, when they get too hot, they'll demagnetize. So that's a bad thing. So you always want to watch the temperature. Now, if you look at your graffiti by using the kilowatt or the BAC display app, you can actually see the temperature of the motor. Now, if yours is stuck on 24 Celsius, like mine originally was and a few other people's, you will not be able to see your temperature. And then you'll never be able to hit a fold back. So if you get over a certain temperature, the bike will just keep giving it full power, and eventually it can burn out the magnets or something else can happen. On to the third thing. Now, these batteries aren't great. I mean, I think a company called Powerful Lithium is going to release a better battery. This is a 58 volt 40 amp hour battery. So when I looked at the program originally, the battery setup was totally wrong. The percentage wasn't reading correctly. So at that percentage, the bike knows how to fold back the current to the battery to not damage it. So I'll show you, there's a chart. You enter the values in on the website, on the BAC controller manual page, and actually I read through this whole manual just to learn everything. And if you enter in the values of the battery, it'll give you what you got to enter, and once I enter that, it'll give me a correct reading and know how to deal with the battery shut off. Let me see, I kept notes here, sorry, I'm gonna check my notes right now. There is another thing. Oh yeah, so besides that, the power mapping, correct battery percentage, and the temperature, that's fine. There's also another thing called pedal sense delay. And I set it 0 to 1 because I felt like whenever you put your foot on the pedals, it would just sometimes randomly go off. Now, one solution is to unplug your pedal assist wire under the seat on the right hand side, but you don't want to really do that if you don't have to, but that's one option. Or you could set it to 1, which makes the pedals have to rotate a little more. In the manual it says you don't want to set it too low, otherwise it's going to be, I guess, jerky, or just take off unexpectedly like it was. All right, so I didn't find the eco button useful at all. So instead of having the eco button regulate volts, I would rather just have the display, the 1 through 3 levels, and basically on off-road mode, full power mode, 7200 watts, you could just limit the power through the display of how much percentage. So I set it to about, I think, 50, 70, 100 or something like that. You could set it to what you want. That way, if you want eco, you just put it on 1. 2 is like normal mode, and then 3 would be sport mode. It always starts off at 1 nice and easy, and then if you want it faster, you press plus to plus. So I figured that was a better way to deal with, you know, handling eco mode and stuff like that. But since I had this spare button, I decided to repurpose it, and as you see, that just has R, and what that means is it has reverse now. So I just twist the throttle while that's in, and it goes in reverse. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that's gonna be it for the Lyric Graffiti video. If you do upgrade the battery, you will have to change a few settings using the BAC door app to the correct values by using that chart. And as long as you limit it to the same amount of wattage, the controller should be able to handle everything else. You wouldn't really have to change anything. So hopefully you guys find this Lyric Graffiti video informative. Hopefully my new mic setup with this Action 5 is working okay. And if you guys want to see more videos like this in the future, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit this thumbs up button if you found this video informative or helpful at all. And again, thank you for watching.